Welcome to the WCNC Plus Live Impact News Studio. I am WCNC Charlotte Sports Director Nick Carboni, fresh off the plane from Jacksonville. I don't know about fresh. I don't know if anybody's fresh coming from Jacksonville back to Charlotte after that one. 26-10 loss for the Panthers in Jacksonville. If it wasn't for a pick six negated, it really could have been 33-3 in this one, and just some lowlights. Bryce Young now has 7 total turnovers in 3 opening games, and the Panthers defense has allowed 200 yards on the ground 7 straight games dating back to last year. To talk about all of it, we're going to go back down to Jacksonville, dare us, to Mia O'Brien. Mia has many jobs, among them ESPN Radio, which you can now hear on WFNZ 92.7 here in Charlotte. She's also part of the Club 904 Jags podcast and the Women's Basketball podcast, which is part of OG Triangle Media. Folks around here are familiar with those guys. Mitchell Northam's been on with us several times. You can find her at Mia O'Brien TV. Mia, thanks for joining me.
Hey, you also missed, I'm also Professor Mo Bryan.
There's too many. We only have 25 minutes.
I know. I don't have a master's degree, but yeah, shout out to the UNF folks, too. Shout out to Mitchell Northam. I'm recording a podcast with him, our latest episode of the Women's Basketball Podcast, after we get done here. But, hey, I'm excited to be here on the first ever episode, even if Panthers fans aren't too happy about this regular season episode number 1.
Yeah, we hope they go better than this. So every Monday at 9 o'clock here on WCNC Plus, we are going to talk Panthers with Panthers reporters and NFL reporters from around the country. That's where Mia comes in. She covers the Jaguars, but she's got a national perspective on ESPN Radio. First of all, Mia, we can hear you here now in Charlotte, so when are you on this week? I know it's a little all over the map.
Yeah, so typically you'll hear me either filling in on Amber and Ian, which is 7 to 10 p.m. Amber, of course, also hosts our tailgate show on the weekends, and so sometimes I've been filling in Wednesdays and Thursdays from 7 to 10 p.m. And then Q Myers has taken back over the late-night spot on ESPN Radio National from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern. And so a whole assortment of us, myself, Emmett Golden, Myron Metcalf, Gabe Neitzel out in Milwaukee, a bunch of us are kind of rotating in, co-hosting with him. Those 3 guys predominantly, but just happy to fill in. My mom refers to me as the Mariano Rivera of the late night shift at ESPN Radio, and so whenever I'm called upon, and then have gotten to also host the college football primetime a little bit as well on Saturday nights.
We're going to see that vicious cutter from O'Brien today. Mia, going into this, I think a lot of people thought it was a toss-up. I think the Jags were favored by about a field goal, 3.5 points. Were you surprised Jacksonville dominated the game? Remember, they came into this season having won 4 games last year, whole new coaching staff. Carolina brought everybody back. They had 5 wins last year. I was certainly surprised that it was that lopsided.
I was surprised it was that lopsided. I was not surprised the Jaguars won the game, just because I do think, despite the fact that the Panthers won 1 more game comparatively last year, I think there is talent here in Jacksonville that perhaps was underrated a year ago. I think what's most impressive is that since the day Liam Cohen stepped to the podium and uttered that famous Duval, he said that we are going to be a more physical team. He was a quarterback at UMass in college. He, of course, is now noteworthy for helping Baker Mayfield throw 40-plus touchdowns in his lone season in Tampa Town. But what Liam Cohen has stressed, and certainly you saw it with Bucky Irving in Tampa, Sean McVay has raved about it from his time with Liam in Los Angeles and watching Liam from afar, both at Kentucky and Tampa. Liam Cohen is dedicated to running the ball and having a physical offense, both at the wide receiver position, the tight end position, and, of course, along the offensive line. They've said things, Nick, since January, and we are actually seeing them back it up. We were told by new defensive coordinator Anthony Campanelli, which I know we'll get into his defense here in a little bit, that this would be an outfit that would be physical, much like the offense, but that their sole goal was to all crash to the football as one and poke the ball out come hell or come high water. That was literally one of the first things we heard Anthony Campanelli say as the Jaguars defensive coordinator. It was reflected on Sunday, and so if only for a 1-game sample size, it didn't surprise me, and it was validating for those of us who cover the Jaguars. And I've covered the Trent Baalke era for the last 5 years. Sorry, you knew I had to get a shot in there. That this was a team that said one thing. This was a brain trust that said one thing, and they actually acted upon it, and you saw the fruits of the labor.
Panthers fans would love to be saying the same thing right now. You know who was surprised about how the Panthers played? The Panthers. Here's head coach Dave Canales after this one.
Honestly, disappointed, but at the same time, I think there's a look of surprise a little bit for the guys because they know what kind of group we have in there,
yeah, right?
And this was not up to the standard that of our expectations for how we play. But the guys are, pretty focused on all right, we get back to work, and this is words coming from the players. We get right back to work tomorrow. We have another week coming up, going out to Arizona, and we have to make sure we're able to take the lessons, grow, and flip the switch so we can just get right back to work.
Mia, Panthers players, coaches, fans, all surprised about how they played in this one. Just from an outsider's perspective, because we all cover the team every day, and we all thought they had a strong training camp, definitely not in the preseason games, and we'll get to that approach, but outside observations on this Panthers team and what you saw from Bryce Young, especially yesterday.
Yeah, I was just a little surprised at the lack of urgency. I was expecting a little bit more of some sort of energy, and maybe there was in the pregame, and then it just didn't translate after that opening drive that resulted in a field goal. I think what was most interesting for me, Nick, is in talking to many of your contemporaries on the Panthers beat and around Carolina last week, I just kept asking the same question that many have asked of Trevor Lawrence, which is, perhaps, despite being, and I know Bryce wasn't a generational prospect at Alabama, but he was a darn good quarterback at the collegiate level, perhaps he was at his peak when he had a successful run game, and only when he had a successful run game. Because now we look back at Trevor Lawrence and we say, well, part of why he was such a great quarterback at Clemson was because he had the ACC's all-time leading rusher in the backfield. Oh, wait, by the way, he's still here. It's just that Press Taylor and the previous regime, I'm talking about the Jaguars' former offense coordinator, were anemic and afraid and allergic to running the football. And so I think that you will see a better Trevor Lawrence when you run the football. I was not surprised then to see Dave Canales run the ball as much as he did, especially with Chuba Hubbard, who's a very good running back. But in talking to folks last week, I was just surprised when I asked Panthers reporters and Panthers hosts and personalities, and they just said, no, look, they're going to run the ball. But it wasn't like this focal point, like it is for Jared Goff, like it is to an extent with Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey, even with Kyron Williams and Matthew Stafford. And now you're going to see it here in Jacksonville with this running back by committee approach and Trevor Lawrence. And so I think that they didn't stray from the game plan. I just didn't get any real juice outside of, a couple of defensive stops here and there. And then also I think the play of J.C. Horn. And that was a little surprising to me, especially knowing so much of this roster is back from a year ago from a team that showed promise at the end of the 2024 campaign.
All right, speaking of game planning, this is a coaching staff in Carolina that returned everybody. Coordinators, Dave Canales entering his second year against the Jacksonville Jaguars team with a rookie head coach and I believe first-time coordinators, and they looked way more cohesive. We're going to listen to Dave Canales today here on Monday talking about Liam Cohen and his game plan.
Great scheme. I give a lot of credit to Liam and to that staff. Shane Waldron, guy that I know, that we have history with, John Van Dam, Chad Morton, Keli'i Kekuewa, who was with us last year as well. It's a really good staff, and I thought they did a great job of preparing those guys to play us and executing.
Mia, I want to ask you this because the big thing here is the preseason plan. Last year, Dave Canales barely played Bryce Young and the starters. This year, he relented and played them a little more, but still not much. What was Jacksonville's approach to playing Trevor Lawrence and the starters under Liam Cohen? And did that have anything to do with how cohesive they looked yesterday?
Yeah, Liam was very forthright about this. He was like, if we had been together the year before, maybe I don't play them as much. But because this is an entirely new operation, everyone's going to play. Because we're preaching competitive nature and trying to be the most competitive franchise of the 32 in the National Football League, we have to play. We have to say, roll out the ball anywhere, anytime. We are going to play football. And so I think it was, I don't want to say like, you had to back up this culture and this identity that you're preaching, and you had to play your starters. Because I do think, Liam gave us the example. It must have been either before preseason game number 1 or number 2. He was walking through the weight room, and Robert Hainsey, who of course came with Liam from Tampa, where he was the backup center, was walking through, and he just yells out to him, and he goes, "Hey, am I playing on Saturday?" And Liam was like, "Do you want to play?" And he goes, "Yeah, I want to play. We want to play." And Liam said, "All right, Cool. Well, that kind of makes my decision pretty easy. And I think that, we saw the starters play one series against the Pittsburgh Steelers in preseason game number 1. They played a quarter and change against the Saints. Trevor Lawrence playing 2 drives. Both were scoring drives against the New Orleans Saints. No one played following the lone joint practice against the Miami Dolphins in preseason week number 3. None of that really surprised me because, again, I think it was important for this first-year head coach, first-year offensive coordinator, first-year defensive coordinator to all get on the same page, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I'll get to that here in just a second. They needed to have some sort of litmus test to see if everything that they were preaching in practice was actually translating to a game-like situation. That was especially true on defense, where, for lack of a better term, Mike Tomlin and Liam Cohen had a handshake agreement. They had spoken on the phone earlier that week before that preseason game number 1 and had all but agreed that, they'd run some basic things, vanilla, nothing too crazy. And the Steelers offense, not with Aaron Rodgers, with Mason Rudolph, but still, they came out in a hurry-up. And Anthony Campanelli and his defense had not prepared for that. And so all of a sudden they're running tempo and they're looking around like, we haven't practiced tempo yet. You know what they did? They got right back in the lab the next day, and the next 2 weeks you saw that defense. They were getting the play calls in quickly and efficiently. They were ensuring that if a team was to go up tempo, they were ready for it. That's coaching. That's developing. And I don't think you would have seen this team develop the way they have over the last month and a half if those starters didn't get a chance to play and you didn't have a chance to correct those mistakes.
All right, more with Mia O'Brien talking Panthers and Jaguars. Got to get to Travis Hunter after the break, and I know Mia's got some Jaguars defensive thoughts against Carolina as well. We'll be right back. Back here with Mia O'Brien from ESPN Radio talking Panthers, Jags, Jacksonville handing it to Carolina 26-10 yesterday down in Duval County. Mia, I mean, Liam had to back up that initial Duval with the strong outing in his first game as a head coach. I know you want to talk about what the Jaguars did defensively to Carolina. I mean, Bryce Young had a tough day. His receivers didn't help him a whole lot. And while the run game looked good up the middle at first, it wasn't really, as you mentioned, the focal point. What did you think a rookie defensive coordinator did against Dave Canales, the head coach and play caller?
Yeah, I thought Anthony Campanelli really took a line from his two of his mentors in the business, in Vic Fangio and Brian Flores, and the fact that you see a defense that uses such deception both pre-snap and post-snap, it is a welcome sigh of relief here in Jacksonville, albeit not to say that the man-to-man defense that was run last year wasn't something that was unique and different at the time. Wasn't welcomed, but I think that you just are seeing a Jaguars defense that is going towards what some of the best defenses in the National Football League run. In terms of what they did against Bryce Young, only 1 sack, only 2 tackles for loss, but they got him off his spot. Josh Hines-Allen, who's 2.5 sacks away from the Jaguars' all-time franchise record, yes, did not record a sack in Week 1, but he had the second highest pressure rate at 28.6% of any pre-Monday Night Football defender. He had the second most pressures, 8, according to NFL Pro Focus, of any defender in the league. And I think that's just one sample size, because if you look in the box score, Josh had 0 tackles and 1 quarterback hit. And so you may not actually see it in the box score, but they made Bryce Young feel uncomfortable. They forced his brain, for lack of a better term, to short circuit, and they were, after the first quarter, I think, able to stop the run. I was a little surprised how much the Panthers were able to gash the Jaguars right up the middle, especially knowing that we've heard from multiple players that they feel Devon Hamilton has returned to his 2022 form prior to suffering the spinal abscess that he suffered in the training camp of 2023. Eric Armstead is back at his natural position inside as opposed to cosplaying as an edge defender. And so I was a little surprised that the Panthers had a lot of success right up the gut in that first quarter, but I think the Jaguars settled in, and certainly having the dime and 3 safety looks that they do, because they carry 11 defensive backs, not including Travis Hunter, I think that really gives them a lot of flexibility in terms of bringing corners on blitzes and creating simulated pressure, which is something that's become a hallmark of Flores' defense up in Minnesota.
Mia, I mentioned it at the top. We'll go to the other side now. This is the 7th straight game that Carolina's defense has allowed 200 rushing yards. This was not a good Jaguars rushing attack last season at all. how worried should the Panthers be that this Jaguars rushing attack got popped for 200? Or can you put them at ease a little bit and say, listen, Jacksonville, maybe actually a good rushing team this year. They do have some good players there.
Yeah, I mean, people forget. It's kind of like, how people forgot Dak Prescott finished in second in the MVP voting 2 years ago. Like, Travis Etienne had back-to-back seasons of over 1,000 all-purpose yards in 22 and 23, coming off of a Lisfranc injury. And people just forget that he's like a good football player. And then again, because the play caller from a year ago was allergic to running the football, despite taking the run game down to the studs, which we heard a time or two here in Jacksonville last year, ultimately the Jaguars would not run the ball. They refused, despite the fact that they had both Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby a year ago. Now you add Bashal Tutin and LaQuint Allen. We saw those two rookies yesterday at different points throughout the game. I think all four running backs offer you something different. That's why Liam Cohen is going with the running back by committee approach right now. But make no mistake about it, it looked like the Travis Etienne that we saw in 2022, especially during that playoff run yesterday. It was actually only, if I could give you a little bit of solace, Panthers fans, it was only, I don't know if this is solace.
That's what we're looking for.
It was only his 8th 100-plus yard game of his career. But, again, ACC's all-time leading rusher. He only had 20 at Clemson. So, some context. That was in 4 years. So, I mean, he's been limited, and he obviously didn't play his true first year in the NFL. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying here.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a long line of 200-plus yard games, and we'll see what James Conner has in store for Carolina next week. All right, we got to talk about Travis Hunter. What did you think of his play, his usage, and what might you bless you? And I know it's tough allergy season down there. What might we see Liam Cohen do with Travis Hunter in the future?
I just hope you're enjoying my emergency as well as we're recording.
I've been there, dude.
Yeah, we're good. We're going to overcome. Travis Hunter, my grandpa I was just on the phone with him for Grandparents' Day because I missed it yesterday, and that was his first question to me, was how did Travis look? And I said, I'm like, look, he played, 39 offensive? Oh, I told Poppy 29, whatever. I told him 29. It was 39 offensive snaps, 6 defensive snaps. That was the expectation. 75-25, 80-20. That was only amplified once Travis missed 10 days during training camp with an upper body injury. And so I was not surprised with the usage at all. Was not surprised to see him lead the team in total receptions because he's going to get the ball in a variety of different spaces. Liam Cohen said today, would you have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more of the playbook shown? Maybe they try some more shots down the field. I think if Trevor Lawrence gets 2 more inches of air, a little bit more touch on that pass that J.C. Horn picked off, we're talking about Travis Hunter scoring a touchdown in his first ever NFL game. I think it would have been housed for 6. As far as how he looked on defense, I think that, and Cassidy Hill, the Panthers team reporter, and I talked about this last week, I was told in December that Travis, well, yes, he's a great corner. There's a reason he's CB1, DB1 in this upcoming draft class. The reason that Deion Sanders switched to Pat Shurmur as his defense coordinator in 2024 was because he needed to run a defense with more zone principles because that would highlight and elevate Travis Hunter's game. And so because Ryan Nielsen here in Jacksonville was running a more press man defense a year ago, there was some question of, well, he's probably not going to be back next year. If we get another defense coordinator in here who runs more press man because of the personnel that's under contract, maybe Travis Hunter doesn't fit. The Jaguars have obviously hired Anthony Campanelli, and they run a very much predominantly zone defense. And so Travis Hunter fits. With that said, that third down reception to Tet McMillan that Travis Hunter was the primary defender on, that was converted for a first down, albeit right underneath. And I think the Jaguars were basically letting the Panthers in the second half take whatever they wanted underneath. I did appreciate Travis's tackling, especially after in the first preseason game, every NFL fan wanted to judge his tackling prowess after one play. Okay, cool. So I thought that was good. And then the other 5 snaps, I thought, while he wasn't directly involved in the play, he indirectly affected how Bryce Young viewed the field. Thought he kept Tet McMillan on the pocket pretty well, and considering he had that assignment, another great first-round rookie from this past April's NFL draft class, and I thought Tet looked pretty good. I honestly went up to Tyson Campbell in the locker room, and I told him, I was like, dude, I was proud of you for that PBU in the end zone over Tet, because that's the type of stuff that there is talent in this Jaguars locker room that can make plays like that, and Tet McMillan's going to be a good wide receiver. That was his first game, and he said he's going to be good. So I thought Travis looked fine. I thought that Tet McMillan showed flashes, which is what I am finally getting to some positives for Panthers fans.
That was the silver lining.
Yeah, we got there eventually. I thought the Jags DBs were very complimentary of him yesterday, too. But ultimately, for Travis Hunter, I think this upcoming week for the Jaguars against the Cincinnati Bengals, that's where we're truly going to see. Because of necessity, because of the matchup, will Travis Hunter be asked to play on both sides of the ball equally? I think that this is the week that's been earmarked. It's tough that it's week 2, so maybe it ends up being more like 60-40 than 50-50. But I think that this is the week that you're going to be like, oh, okay, they're going to need him more on the defensive side of the ball just because T. Higgins and Jamar Chase exist. But make no mistake about it, Nick, he's the first player in 20 years to have 5+ receptions and 5+ snaps on defense. I know that that's an arbitrary stat, but it's the reality of it all. He could not play another down in the National Football League, and he's already rewritten the history books.
All right, Bill Belichick making some controversial comments here in Charlotte, and today a response from Foxborough. More with Mia O'Brien coming up next. Back here with ESPN Radio's Mia O'Brien from down in Jacksonville. We're done talking Panthers, Jags. Panthers and their fans just want to flush that one, but we fleshed it out a little bit. Mia, I want to get to some controversial comments from, well, it's not an NFL coach anymore, Bill Belichick, now with North Carolina. Comments he made after his first collegiate coaching victory that came right here in Charlotte, talking about a report that he was not allowing Patriots scouts into the facility in Chapel Hill. And I believe Shelby Swanson was the journalist that asked him the question in the post-game press conference. I was surprised he answered. I was not surprised how he answered. Take a listen.
We haven't heard from you yet on this. Obviously, reports this week of New England Patriots scouts being banned from practice. Just wanted to give you the opportunity to comment on that and provide some sort of explanation on that.
Yeah, well, no, it's clear that I'm not welcome there around their facility, and so they're not welcome in ours. Pretty simple.
I guess so. Yeah, facepalm. Now I want to. So, current Patriots coach and Belichick disciple as a player, Mike Vrabel, was asked about this on the Greg Hill Show on WEEI. I think it's his weekly appearance. Mm-hmm. And here's what he had to say in response to Belichick's comment.
Again, nothing surprises me. I would imagine that that Bill, I mean, he came back for the best of my knowledge, Tom's ceremony, so that I guess he's welcome back based on the fact that he was there. So I'll just go by that. Since his departure as the head coach here, he's been back, and I'll leave it at that.
Mia, Belichick had a farewell press conference. Yep. I know it's frosty with Robert Kraft, but he even said that he's going to build him a statue. Is this just Belichick being as petty as possible still to this day, even in his older age?
Petty as possible and just trying to stay relevant because after what happened on, I'll call it Monday Night Football, even though it wasn't, on a national stage, in the words of my friend Caitlin Clark, she's kind of blocked right now, but in the words of Caitlin Clark, always be marketing. And so Bill Belichick's taking a note from Caitlin's book, and he's making sure that he's staying relevant, albeit inadvertently. I know he doesn't like to call a lot of attention to himself, but hey, in this day and age, they recognize that they are now working. He and the rest of his support staff are working in college football, where if you are not in the mainstream conscious, if you are not in the spotlight for these 16 and 17-year-olds, 15 and 14-year-olds who are entering the college recruiting process, if you're not cool and hip, then you're not relevant and you're not viable to potentially this Jordan, North Carolina, Belichick brand. Also, I want to quickly tie it back to the AFC South and just tell you this. Like, when I tell you around the National Football League, but especially in Nashville, people have such immense respect for Mike Vrabel. That's why I am very high on the Patriots. I know they lost yesterday to Pete Carroll and the Las Vegas Raiders, but ultimately, people in Nashville are still kicking themselves because they still cannot believe that Amy Adams-Strunk had the wherewithal to get rid of Mike Vrabel, who I've heard anecdotally from other reporters just about what he's done for them. Like, I used a euphemism on a different show. I won't with you, Nick. Somebody's grandma died, and Mike Vrabel just unsolicited, not from the Titans, like from Mike Vrabel and his family, sent flowers, sent food, checked in on the reporter. He didn't have to do that, but like that's just the type of guy he is. That's why I'm really high on Vrabel succeeding and being the guy after the guy in New England. It's just unfortunate that the guy is now just trying to maybe coach college football, maybe just be a media stunt.
Yeah, I mean, media stunt maybe bring some more attention. I'm not sure if it's wanted or not. And isn't the point to get the kids' attention from all 32 NFL teams?
You would think, but it doesn't surprise me. But ultimately, I think that, they believe that, well, if the Patriots are to scout one of our guys, they could just turn on the TV. They can turn on the tape, and they can find out more about them that way, which I don't agree with it, but maybe that's the way they're approaching it.
Mia, help me understand as we wrap this up. An hour and 16-minute weather delay in Jacksonville. The public address pleading for the entire 76 minutes with people to leave their seats and seek shelter, and there were still about 30,000 Floridians in the seats. What's going on down there?
Well, first off, let's acknowledge the reality, Nick, which is it did not rain. I went for a walk with Action News Jax' Olivia Tasley and Carly, who works in ops for the Jags. We were just like, we're going for a walk. Like, I need to get some fresh air. It was pleasant outside. I've golfed in that type of weather. We had no rain. For those who are familiar with our geography down here in the 904, the actual storm cell was over Nassau County, which is right on the Georgia border, which is right on the fringe of 10 to 15 miles away from the stadium, which, don't get me wrong, is still considered a danger according to the National Football League and according to high school football codes around the country. But yeah, I mean, it barely rained. I go back to how many games we've had the Jaguars play in monsoons and we haven't had delays. I was stunned, quite frankly, that they had that delay.
Well, it certainly rained on the Panthers parade, and we are running out of time, according to Zoom, so I'll take that cue. Mia O'Brien, you can hear her on ESPN Radio right here in Charlotte on WFNZ 92.7. Appreciate you, as always. Good to catch up with you, and good luck the rest of the way. Looks like your guys were ready to play, so thanks.
Hey, we'll see what happens this week, because in the words of Bill Belichick, we are on to Cincinnati.
Mia, thank you.